religion has always been the opium of the masses throughout history. Throughout history. The havoc that religion has done to mankind, it's simply unbelievable. And sometimes you even wonder where to start from. Are you going to start from the era of Copernicus? This guy, excuse me, who came to the conclusion that the earth could not be flat, but was round. What did the religious leaders do to him? They caught him and killed him. They killed him in the name of religion. He was accused of blasphemy and killed. That is not all. 1452, in the year 1452, the Pope of the Catholic Church, actually signed a papal bull authorizing King Alfonso of Portugal to go out and enslave all those who were not Christians, authorized them to kill them, to seize their wives and properties. These crimes were committed in the name of religion. That is not all. I urge everybody who can to go to the Elmina Castle. The Elmina Castle tells a very interesting story. On top of the dungeons where the slaves were kept sat a church. The church was sitting on the dungeons where slaves were kept. That was not all. There's a point they call the point of no return. That is where the slaves are actually put onto vessels and the vessels sail away. At that point, priests used to bless the cargo. And what was the cargo? Slaves. So that the cargo could arrive at their destination to maximize the profits of the slave traders and so on. This is religion. You understand? You may not even end it. One of the very first slave vessels, the vessels which came to capture our forebears as beasts of burden to build the foundations of the capitalist society and so on, was called Jesus. The slave vessel, the name of the slave vessel was Jesus. You understand? Look, what was the major instrument that the slave owners used in order to domesticate the slaves? It was the Bible. They actually had two versions of the Bible, one for the slaves and one for the slave owners. And the one for the slaves had all these quotations about slaves: be obedient to your masters and so on. It's all in the Bible. Religion. And you see, we can go on and on and on. In Ghana, during the Achampon era, just here, Jowulu, a guy lived there. It was called the Jesus Christ of Jowulu. And he said that to go to heaven, you don't have to take your bath. You don't have to cut your hair and so on. And he had followers. It took the security services to arrest him and to dismantle that camp. People who believe that if you want to go to heaven, you don't have to wash yourself. You don't have to wear sandals. You don't have to cut your hair and so on. Right here at Jowulu. Not too long ago, you heard about that other bishop who actually told a woman, an elderly woman in his church, to carry a bag of cement. Carry a bag of cement.
Yeah.
And walk several kilometers.
Yeah. I remember.
So that she could be forgiven her sins. And it gets worse. It gets worse. The stories get worse every day. And I cannot imagine that with all this history, people still fall victim. You know, a lot of Christians love a particular Christian song, Amazing Grace. I'm sure you are familiar with Amazing Grace. And when they sing Amazing Grace in church, they sing it with passion. You know who wrote Amazing Grace? Slave trader. A slave trader wrote Amazing Grace. This song that Christians love most and so on. You take a constitution. I've been reading through the constitution because of this IE invitation for me to go and speak there about the constitution. So I've started reading the constitution all over again. And I'm finding very interesting things. First of all, the constitution pretends to be secular. But if you take the constitution, the very first chapters of the constitution talks about us accepting this constitution in the name of God. How is that secular? How is that secular? If you read the constitution, African traditional religious believers have no rights. No rights at all. If you read, for example, the provisions on the National Media Commission, it specifically makes the point that the Ahmadiyya movement, the Muslim Council, and the Christian Council should have seats on the National Media Commission. African traditional religious worship is completely excluded and so on. So I'm so happy that IEA invited me to do this presentation because it's forced me to go back and read the Constitution again. And I'm amazed at the Constitution and how this Constitution can pretend to be secular and to be promoting democratic ends and promoting respect for human rights. I can't believe it. But you see, in this particular case, 251 people in Kenya killed themselves. And they killed themselves through starvation. One of the most painful ways of dying, starvation. They denied themselves food and water and died. Because the priest told them that that was the only way of meeting Jesus Christ. But they should have asked themselves why the priest himself didn't want to meet Jesus Christ. Because the priest should have been the first person to want to meet Jesus Christ. He didn't starve. He's still alive. And as my brother said, his wife didn't starve, his children didn't starve. So he didn't want to meet Jesus. But the congregation were instructed to meet Jesus. And you know, my brother, some of the stories are so silly. You just sit back and ask, so how did human beings come to believe these things? There is this priest in Nigeria who actually told his congregation that he had found the gate to heaven. And that the gate to heaven was somewhere in Nigeria. So if you pay him money, he will take you to the gate to heaven. In Nigeria. And they were paying. Charlie. Educated people were paying. Village elders were paying. They were all paying so that this priest could take them to the gate of heaven in Nigeria. Unbelievable stupidity. But you see, it is not just stupidity. It is not just stupidity. The capitalist system has completely failed. People no longer have hope. In our societies, the way our societies are developing, they don't see any salvation. How they can realize their full human potential in this capitalist neo-colonial society. So they are looking for somewhere to go, and heaven presents as an attractive destination. I listened to Muhammad Ali, that famous heavyweight boxing champion. You know, he's a very devout Muslim, or so he said.
Yeah.
And he asked himself in one of his interviews one day and said, why do I want to go to heaven? He asked himself, why do I want to go to heaven? That all the scriptures say that in heaven there is no food. The only food available is milk and honey. So for breakfast, milk and honey. For lunch, milk and honey. For dinner, milk and honey. Forever. For eternity, milk and honey. And Muhammad Ali said, hey, I love my steak. But there's no steak in heaven, only milk and honey. The heaven is not for him. There's a on the basis of the menu available in heaven, Muhammad Ali came to the conclusion that heaven was not for him. How? Milk and honey. How bad? In the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, forever, milk and honey. And you want to go there and do what? You know. So if all of us apply our gumption, I think that we can save some of these situations. Look, you can believe whatever you want to believe. But if you're a Christian, you certainly must believe that God created you. If you're a Muslim, you must believe that God created you. If you are Baha'i, you must believe that God created you. In fact, all the religions accept the claim that God created us. Now, if you accept that God created you, you must also accept that the brain in your head was put there by God. And that God did not put that brain in your head for nothing. Put it in your head to be used. So use that brain. Use that brain. And if you are religious, you must accept the equality of all men and women. So how come that somebody who is called Archbishop something, as for him, God gave him more powers than you? How is that possible when God created all of us equally? So use your brain. Use your brain. Use your brain. And be confident that your brain will be more powerful than that of the Archbishop. Because we've seen these Archbishops and Archangels. One of them now says that as for him, he has graduated beyond bishop. He's now an angel. And often goes to heaven to go and chat with Moses and Jesus Christ and so on. And the other day I saw him on television. And his congregation, they were clapping for him. When he said that he went to heaven. One night he flew to heaven and he saw Jesus and had a conversation with Jesus. And he told Jesus that Jesus was a very stubborn boy. So the congregation was clapping for him. Listen, I mean, this is madness. Mother, this cannot be short of madness. Complete madness. And as Bob Marley says, let's free ourselves from mental slavery. Bob Marley told us to free ourselves from mental slavery. These are clear manifestations of mental slavery and stupidity.